A shopkeeper fed a lost girl every day, until one day the king and his guards stopped at her shop. Before we begin this beautiful period romance story, tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I love knowing where you're joining me from. The first time Elena Morales saw the girl, it was barely dawn and the ovens were still roaring. She had just pulled the first loaves from the heat and set them to cool on the boards by the window. The street outside was grey and empty. Cold air slipped through the cracks, bringing with it the faint sound of distant hooves and the murmur of water in the fountain at the square's centre. When she glanced toward the glass, she saw a pale face pressed near the pane. She jumped a little, flour dust rising from her apron. A pair of dark eyes stared back at her. The child did not startle or move away. She simply watched the bread with a gaze so fixed that Elena felt, absurdly, that the loaves might begin to burn under it. Elena set down the wooden peel and stepped closer. "What are you doing out there, Nina?" she asked, lifting the latch to open the narrow door beside the front window. "It's freezing. Have you lost your way?" The girl did not answer. Up close, Elena saw that her hair was tangled but clean. Her dress was worn at the hem, as if it had seen more walking than it was meant for, yet it was made of cloth finer than anything that usually appeared in this part of Segovia. Her hands were clasped tightly, as though she fought the urge to reach for the bread. Elena softened her voice. "Have you eaten today?" A small shake of the head. The girl's eyes never left the loaf nearest to her, the crust still crackling as it cooled. Elena's chest tightened. She glanced back at the shelves. That first basket of bread was meant for early customers, the guards who passed at sunrise, the old woman who bought half a loaf and stretched it for days, the stonemasons who took yesterday's bread at a discount. But the girl's thin fingers were red from cold. Her lips were dry. Elena hesitated only a heartbeat. "Wait here," she said. She turned, tore a generous piece from a loaf that was not too hot to hold, and folded it in a cloth. When she returned to the door, she held it out. "Take it," she said. "Eat it round the corner or people will complain I'm feeding beggars instead of customers." The girl finally lifted her gaze to Elena's face. There was something in it that did not belong to the streets, a kind of careful politeness, as if even in hunger she was afraid to offend. She reached out, took the bread with both hands and whispered, "Thank you." Her voice was soft but clear, with the precise consonants of someone who had been corrected often in speech. Elena blinked. "What is your name, Nina?" The girl hesitated as though the question were dangerous. Then she said, "Anna. Just Anna?" Elena pressed gently. The girl nodded, clutching the bread to her chest. "Well, Anna," Elena said, fighting back the urge to press further, "go and eat before it cools. Bread is meant to be eaten warm." The corner of Anna's mouth lifted in the shadow of a smile. She turned and hurried away, disappearing toward the alley that led to the back of the bakery. Elena watched her go, then closed the door and returned to her work. She meant to forget about it. Children wandered, wars had left many fatherless, and poverty did the rest. She had no business adopting every stray who looked through her window. But as she kneaded dough for the next batch, she found her thoughts returning to the girl's careful thank you and the strange contrast between her worn dress and the way she held herself. By the time the first customers arrived, Elena had pushed the girl from her mind. She served bread, gave change, answered comments about the weather and the price of flour. The smell of yeast and warm crust filled the small shop. Coins clinked on the counter. A neighbor gossiped about rumors from Madrid, about the king's movements and the unrest in the capital. "Elena, have you heard?" the woman said, leaning forward as if conspirators lurked behind the sacks of flour. "They say His Majesty Alfonso is traveling again. The court never sits still these days. Maybe he will come north. Imagine, the king in Segovia." Elena smiled politely and wrapped the woman's loaf. "If the king ever comes into my bakery," she said, "it will be because heaven is playing tricks on us." She laughed with her customer, and the idea drifted away as impossible as snow in July. The next morning, at almost the same hour, the pale face appeared at the window again. This time Elena did not jump. She had been expecting it, though she had not admitted that to herself. She watched the girl for a moment to see if she would move on. Anna stood perfectly still, looking at the bread with that same intense longing. When a passerby brushed against her, she shifted to the side with a small automatic gesture that seemed too graceful for a child living on scraps. Elena wiped her hands, went to the side door, and opened it. "You again?" she said. "Did you sleep in the street?" Anna shook her head but did not offer more. "Where do you sleep then?" Elena asked, not unkindly. "In a house," Anna answered, eyes flicking away. "What house?" She said nothing. Her small jaw set stubbornly. Elena sighed. She recognized that look. She had seen it in children who feared that any answer they gave would be used against them. "Very well," Elena said. "If you mean to starve while guarding your secrets, I cannot force bread into your mouth." She began to close the door. "I am not allowed to talk," Anna whispered suddenly. Elena paused. "Not allowed?" Anna bit her lip, shocked by her own words. "I mean, I promised I would not." "A promise to whom?" The girl dropped her gaze. "To a lady." "Does this lady know you are standing outside my shop in the cold?" Elena asked. Silence. Elena studied her for a moment, then opened the door wider. "Come," she said. "You can eat in the back. It is warmer there. No one will see." Anna hesitated, looking down the street as if someone might appear at any moment. Then she slipped inside, light on her feet, and followed Elena through the narrow passage that led behind the counter to the small kitchen. The warmth of the oven wrapped around them. Elena motioned toward a wooden stool near the wall. "Sit," she said, "and eat quickly. I have customers coming." She handed the girl a piece of bread and a small cup of milk. Anna took both and murmured her thanks again. She ate in small bites, as if savoring each mouthful, though hunger clearly pulled at her. Elena pretended to busy herself with flour and dough, but her eyes kept straying to the child. "How long have you been in Segovia?" she asked. "A little while," Anna said. "With family?" The girl chewed and said nothing. "You could at least tell me if you are safe," Elena insisted, unable to help herself. "Do you have someone who looks after you?" Anna swallowed, then lifted her gaze. "I have you," she said simply. The words struck Elena like a physical blow. She had not asked for them. She was only a baker, already burdened with bills, and the memory of a brother who had not returned from the last battles. She could not afford to take on a child, and yet she could not pretend she had not heard. "You have me," Elena repeated slowly. "For bread, that is all I can promise." Anna nodded and lowered her eyes again, as if she had expected nothing more. After that day, the pattern took hold without either of them naming it. Each morning, as the first batch came out of the oven, the girl appeared. Sometimes she stayed at the window. Sometimes Elena opened the side door and motioned her in without a word. When customers were many, Anna waited quietly in the back room, perched on the same stool, eating whatever Elena could spare. A broken crust, a bun that had come out oddly shaped, yesterday's loaf warmed over. Elena told no one. If any of the neighbors saw a small figure slipping along the alley, they assumed she was some errand girl. If they glimpsed a pair of small shoes near the back door, they did not comment. People in Segovia had learned not to ask too many questions about misfortune. Anyone could fall. It was safer not to look too closely at those on the edge. Some afternoons, when business was slow, Elena tried again to coax a little more from Anna. "Do you not go to church on Sundays?" she asked one day, while cutting bread for stale sale. "Yes," Anna answered. "With whom?" With people." "That is not an answer," Elena said. Anna shrugged, her shoulders slight. "Are these people kind to you?" Elena pressed. Anna hesitated. "They say I must be brave," she murmured. "Brave for what?" "For the game," Anna said. A chill slid along Elena's spine. "What game?" But the girl fell silent again, staring down at her hands. Elena did not push further. She told herself she was foolish to worry. Children invented games out of nothing. They imagined stories to make sense of the world. Perhaps Anna was a servant's child in a house she did not dare mention, afraid of being punished for begging. Still, that night as she tallied her coins and counted how much flour she could afford for the next week, Elena remembered the way Anna had said, "the game," and shivered. On market days, when more customers than usual pressed into the shop, Elena caught herself glancing toward the window, afraid someone else would notice the girl and start asking questions. She began to arrange the loaves so that Anna could see them from a corner, not directly from the street. She left a small bundle of bread and cheese near the back door, wrapped in cloth, in case the girl came when she could not be received inside. Why do you do it? Asked Teresa, her neighbor, one morning when she caught Elena slipping the bundle into place. Do what? Elena feigned ignorance. Set aside bread like that, Teresa said. You hardly make enough for yourself. Is it for some secret lover? Elena rolled her eyes. If I had a lover, secret or otherwise, I would charge him full price, she said. I am not running a charitable association. Then who is it for? Teresa insisted. For no one you need to trouble yourself about, Elena replied, a touch sharp. You worry about your chickens, let me worry about my bread. Teresa sniffed, half offended, half amused, and left. Elena exhaled and leaned against the doorframe for a moment. She had never been adept at lying. It did not sit well on her tongue, but the thought of other people's eyes on Anna, of their assumptions and questions, made secrecy feel like a shield. One rainy afternoon, when thunder growled over the hills and few customers ventured out, Anna appeared soaked to the skin. Water ran from her hair, darkening the collar of her thin dress. She shivered as she stood in the doorway, teeth chattering. Saints preserve us, Eleanor muttered, pulling her inside. You will catch your death. She took an old shawl from a hook and wrapped it around the girl's shoulders, then guided her toward the stove, where a kettle simmered. Sit there, she said. Hold your hands out to the fire. Anna obeyed, trembling. Did no one notice you left the house like this? Elena asked, pouring hot water into a cup and adding a precious spoonful of honey. I was not seen, Anna said. Elena frowned. You creep out like a cat. That cannot be safe. Someone will think you are a thief. I only take your bread, Anna said, voice small. You do not take it, Elena corrected. I give it. That is different. She handed Anna the cup. Drink, slowly. The girl cradled it, breathing in the steam as though it were the sweetest air. Elena? She asked after a moment. Yes? Why do you give me bread? The question, simply asked, caught Elena off guard. She reached for a cloth and wiped a spot on the table that did not need wiping, stalling for time. Because you are hungry, she said at last. Other people are hungry, Anna replied. No one gives them bread every day. Elena studied her. Do you wish me to stop? She asked. Anna's eyes flew open in horror. No. Then do not ask foolish questions, Elena said gently. I give because I can. Because I remember what it is to fear there will be no meal. Because you say thank you. She paused, then added quietly, and because when you look at the bread, you seem to see more than bread. Anna looked down into her cup. It is not only bread, she said. It means I am not forgotten. The words lodged in Elena's throat. She turned away abruptly to hide her reaction. You are not forgotten, she said. Not while I have flour. Days lengthened into weeks. The rhythm of the bakery continued, steady as the ticking of the small clock on the shelf. The town's life rose and fell with rumors of politics, news of relatives, births and funerals. Soldiers occasionally passed through, buying provisions with government notes that never quite matched the promised value. Priests came for bread for the poor box. Craftsmen counted coins carefully, arguing over prices. And every morning, without fail, Anna came. Sometimes she was early, waiting by the window when Elena lit the oven. Sometimes she was late, cheeks flushed as if she had run. Once, she did not come at all, and Elena found herself glancing toward the street every few minutes, her stomach twisting with worry. That day, the bread tasted like ashes in her mouth. At last, near midday, the small figure appeared, breathless, eyes wide with apology. I am sorry, Anna gasped. I could not come. She broke off, pressing a hand to her mouth. They what? Eleanor asked, heart pounding. They watched, Anna whispered. Today there were more of them. I had to wait until they went away. More of whom? Eleanor demanded. Anna shook her head. I promised, she repeated helplessly. I promised not to speak. Elena's temper, usually well controlled, flared. A promise that keeps you from telling someone where you sleep and who watches you is not a promise made for your good, she said. It is a chain. Anna looked torn like a child caught between two loyalties. They said it is a great game, she whispered. They said if I am brave and do not speak, I will make them very proud, and that when the game is over, everything will be as before. When what is over? Elena pressed, but the girl fell silent again, shrinking into herself. Elena tried a different approach. Listen to me, Anna, she said more softly. There are games that are harmless, There are games that hurt. If someone told you that you must be hungry, cold, and alone to play this game, then they are wrong. No decent person would ask such a thing of a child. Anna's fingers tightened around her piece of bread. I want it to be over, she admitted, but I am afraid if I speak it will never end. Elena reached out and laid a hand lightly on her shoulder. You come here, she said. You eat. You warm yourself. That much is your right. Whatever game they play, I will not play it with you. Anna blinked back tears and nodded. It was not enough, Elena knew. Bread and warmth could not undo whatever tangle the girl lived in. But they were what she had to give, and so she kept giving. As winter turned toward spring, talk in the town shifted more and more toward the king. Have you heard? Customers asked, each with a different version. He is near Valladolid. No, near Burgos. No, he is coming this way, to review troops and visit the cathedral. Elena listened with half an ear, more concerned about the price of grain than the movements of a distant monarch. Kings came and went. Flour always seemed to grow more expensive. One brisk morning, as she was arranging sweet rolls on a tray and watching for Anna, her neighbor Teresa burst into the shop, cheeks red, hair half under her shawl. "Eleanor, have you not heard?" she exclaimed. "Heard what?" Eleanor asked dryly. "That you have no respect for doors." Teresa waved away the remark. "The king is in Segovia," she cried. "This very day there are banners, soldiers. The whole square is in an uproar. They say he will pass this way on his way to the cathedral." Eleanor stared. "Here?" she repeated. "Why would he come down our street? He has no reason to visit a baker's lane." "It is on the way," Teresa insisted, "and no one knows what whims seize the great. You should come and see. This is not a sight one has every day." "I have dough in the oven," Elena said. "If I leave it, we will have nothing to sell, king or no king." Teresa huffed. "Then at least step outside when you hear the trumpets," she said. "You must not be the only one in Segovia who does not glimpse his majesty. Imagine your grandchildren will ask, 'Grandmother, did you see the king?' And you will say, 'No, I was too busy worrying about bread.' What a story!" "I have no grandchildren," Eleanor replied, but a reluctant smile tugged at her lips. "Go then, shout for both of us." Teresa left as quickly as she'd come, swept back toward the commotion. Eleanor shook her head and returned to her work. Yet even as she shaped loaves, her ears strained for sounds beyond the usual market noise. An hour passed. Customers came and went, speaking of soldiers at the town gates, of horses and fine carriages. Finally, the street outside began to hum with a different kind of energy. Footsteps increased, voices rose. The faint sound of trumpets drifted through the open transom above the door. Elena wiped her hands on her apron and stepped to the window. People lined the street now, pressing close to see. Children craned their necks. A few brave souls had climbed onto low walls. The colors of cloth and cloak blurred into a moving river of anticipation. As Elena scanned the scene, her gaze caught on a small figure standing near the edge of the crowd, just beside her window. Anna. She stood on tiptoes, trying to peer around an adult. Her dress, though the same simple cut as ever, seemed almost clean today, as if someone had taken care with it. Her hair was better combed. But she looked anxious, fingers gripping the edge of the window frame. Elena pushed open the side door and leaned out. "Anna," she called over the murmur. The girl turned, relief flashing across her face. "I thought you would not come today," Elena said, "with all this nonsense about kings." "I had to come," Anna replied, stepping closer. "I told you I would. You should not be in this crush," Elena said. "Come inside. You can see from the window." Anna hesitated, glancing up the street. "I have to see," she said. "They said he would pass. They said—" She broke off, biting her lip. "They said what?" Elena asked. "Nothing," Anna answered quickly. "Only that I should be here, that it is important." Something in her tone tightened the knot of unease in Elena's stomach. "Who said so?" she asked quietly. Anna looked down. "It was part of the game," she whispered. Elena's hands clenched. "This game again," she murmured. "Very well. You will see the king from inside, where I can keep you from being trampled in their excitement. That is my rule. Do you understand?" Anna looked torn, but another swell of sound from up the street, trumpets, the jangle of harness, decided her. She nodded and slipped inside, pressing to the window from the other side, where glass separated her from the crowd. Eleanor stood beside her, heart oddly quickened. The noise grew louder. People cheered. Flags appeared first, then soldiers in neat lines, their uniforms bright against the grey stone of the houses. Behind them came horsemen in fine cloaks, then a carriage bearing royal arms. It rolled slowly, allowing the king to be seen. "There he is," someone shouted outside. "His Majesty, long live the king!" Voices took up the cry. "Long live the king!" Elena had never seen Alfonso so close. He rode beside the carriage, not within it, a cloak over his shoulders, his posture straight but not stiff. His face was lined more than she would have expected for a man not yet old, lines carved by worry and responsibility. Beside her, Anna pressed her palms to the glass, eyes wide. "Is that him?" she breathed. "Is that the king?" "Yes," Elena said. "That is the man the whole kingdom talks about." Anna's gaze followed the king as he moved slowly down the street, acknowledging the cheers with a grave nod. Then, suddenly, as his horse drew almost level with the bakery window, Anna gasped. Her hand lifted to the glass, fingers splayed. "He is here," she whispered, but Eleanor was not sure whether she meant the king or someone else. At that precise moment, the king's head turned. Perhaps he heard a particular voice in the crowd. Perhaps he felt the weight of a stare more intense than the others. Whatever the reason, his eyes, searching the faces lining the street, came to rest on the small girl behind the bakery window. He frowned slightly, as if not trusting his own sight. His horse slowed. The men around him shifted, puzzled by the change in pace. Anna froze, her face pale except for 2 bright spots of color on her cheeks. The king narrowed his eyes, then reined his horse toward the side of the street toward the bakery. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. What is he doing? Why is he stopping? Who is he looking at? Elena felt every muscle in her body tense. She glanced at Anna, who seemed rooted to the spot. The king brought his horse to a halt directly before the shop. He stared at Anna, his expression a strange mix of hope and dread. Then he dismounted. Gasps rose from the crowd. He took a step toward the window, then another, stopping only a few feet from the glass that separated him from the girl. Elena found herself stepping back, pulling Anna slightly behind her by instinct. The king lifted a hand, as though reaching toward a reality that might melt away if he moved too quickly. "Anna Isabel," he said, his voice low but carrying clearly in the sudden silence. "Mi niña." The name seemed to strike the girl like an invisible blow. She flinched, eyes huge, lips parted. Behind the king, one of his attendants hurried forward. "Your Majesty," the man murmured urgently, "is something wrong? Do you know this child?" The king did not take his eyes from Anna. "Yes," he said, each word heavy with emotion. "She is my daughter." The crowd erupted. Cries and exclamations filled the air. "The princess! It cannot be! Blessed be God, she is found!" Elena's mind reeled. "Princess?" She looked down at Anna in disbelief. The girl clung to her hand now, fingers digging into her palm. Her face had gone almost white. The bakery door flew open as someone from the royal escort entered, bowing hastily. "Forgive me, Senora," he said, "but His Majesty has reason to believe the child in your shop is the missing princess. You must bring her out at once." Elena stared at him. "The princess?" she repeated faintly. "That is impossible. She is just a girl who comes for bread." Anna shook her head in tiny, panicked motions, pressed against Elena's side. Outside, the crowd surged, trying to get a better view. Soldiers spread their arms to hold them back. The king waited, gaze fixed on the door. "You must bring her," the attendant insisted. "His Majesty has searched for her for months. If she is indeed the princess, this is a miracle." Eleanor looked at Anna. "Is it true?" she asked, voice barely a whisper. "Are you—" Anna tightened her grip on Eleanor's hand. "I do not want to go," she burst out suddenly. "Please do not let go of me." A tangled knot formed in Elena's throat. "If she is the princess," the attendant said, "she must be with her father. The king commands it." Anna shook her head more fiercely. "I am afraid," she cried. "Eleanor, do not leave me, please." Outside, the chant began to change. "The princess! Long live the princess! Eleanor," the attendant urged, "His Majesty will speak with you himself. But now you must obey. Bring the child." Elena felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her. The king waited. The crowd watched. Anna's small fingers clung to her own, as if to a lifeline. She drew a breath and stepped toward the doorway, the girl at her side. As they emerged into the light, the noise of the crowd seemed to dim. The king took a step forward, studying the child's face. His own features trembled, tears shining unshed in his eyes. "Anna Isabel," he said again, voice thick, "my daughter. Where have you been?" Anna did not answer. She pressed herself half behind Elena, staring at him with a mix of recognition and fear that cut right through the woman who had fed her day after day. Whispers rose around them. The baker hid the princess. Did she know? Perhaps she kept her for ransom. Elena felt those words prickle along her skin like sparks from a fire. The king tore his gaze from his daughter long enough to look at Elena. "You," he said, not unkindly, but with the full authority of his position in his voice. "You will come with us. You will tell me how my child came to be in your shop." And over the hush of the stunned crowd, Elena heard the first dangerous question rising like smoke. How had the king's daughter ended up in her bakery? Elena did not remember later how she climbed into the carriage. Hands guided her. Voices pressed on all sides. Someone spoke to her in a tone that was meant to be soothing, but every word slid past her like water over stone. The only thing she felt clearly was Anna's hand, still locked in hers. "Do not let go," Anna whispered, her voice shaking. "Promise me." "I will not let go," Elena answered, though she had no idea whether such a promise was hers to make. The crowd parted as the royal escort formed around the carriage. People stretched their necks, trying to see inside. Some made the sign of the cross. Others whispered behind their hands. The baker kept the princess hidden. Maybe she meant to sell her back, or perhaps she saved her. Who knows? Elena heard enough to understand that her name, which had been barely a breath on the streets that morning, was now being shaped into rumors. The carriage door closed with a dull thud. Inside, the noise of the crowd dulled, leaving only the rattle of wheels and the muffled rhythm of hooves. The king sat opposite Elena and Anna. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, eyes fixed on his daughter. Anna sat pressed against Elena's side, fingers still gripping her hand. She did not look at him. "Anna Isabel," the king said gently. "Look at me, Hija." Slowly, as if pulled by a thread, Anna lifted her gaze. Her eyes met his. Something like recognition flickered there, mixed with fear and a deep confusion. "Papa," she whispered, barely audible. The king's face crumpled. He reached out, then stopped himself, as if afraid she might vanish if he touched her too quickly. "Yes," he said. "Papa, I have been looking for you. We have all been looking for you." Anna's lower lip trembled. "They said you did not want me," she murmured. "Who said that?" the king demanded, sharp pain in his voice. Anna flinched and shrank back. Elena's instinct took over. She tightened her arm around the girl's shoulders. "Majesty," she said quietly, "forgive me, but she is frightened." "Perhaps questions should wait." The king's gaze shifted to her for the first time. Up close, he seemed less like the distant figure on a horse and more like a man worn thin by worry. His eyes, red at the edges, studied Elena. The flower on her sleeves, the simple braid pinned at the back of her head, the lines near her mouth. "You are the baker," he said. It was not a question. "Yes, Your Majesty," Elena replied. Her voice sounded strange to her own ears. "Elena Morales. I own the shop where—" She hesitated, glancing at Anna. "Where the girl comes every morning. Where my daughter comes," he corrected, but not harshly. He looked at Anna again, as if trying the truth on his tongue and finding it almost too big to hold. "How long has she been there?" Elena swallowed. "A few weeks," she said. "Perhaps more." The king shut his eyes briefly, as if struck. "In the streets," he murmured. "My child in the streets while I—" He broke off, his hand clenching on his knee. Elena watched him, torn between sympathy and a rising fear that none of this made sense. And yet it was happening. The carriage rolled on, leaving the familiar streets behind. The houses grew larger, the noise of the crowd thinner. Finally, the wheels ground over cobbles in a courtyard, and the carriage slowed to a stop. The door opened. A man in a dark coat with a sash across his chest bowed. "Your Majesty, the rooms are prepared," he said. "We have cleared the west wing for your use." "Good," the king replied shortly. "See that no one without my express order approaches these rooms. No one." "Yes, sire." The king turned to Elena. "You will come inside," he said. "You will tell me everything you know. Until then, you and the child will remain under my protection." The word protection should have comforted her. Instead, it felt like a door closing. "I have a bakery," Eleanor said before she could stop herself. "Ovens lit, dough rising. If I do not return, the bread will burn. You will not return for now," the king said, his voice firm in a way that did not invite discussion. "I will see that your property is watched and your goods compensated. What matters now is my daughter." Elena opened her mouth, then shut it again. "My neighbor has a key," she said instead, grasping at something practical. "Teresa, she lives across from the square. If someone tells her she can see to the oven, I will send a man," the king said. He nodded to one of his attendants, who bowed and disappeared. It was like that then. Her life could be rearranged with a word from him. Elena drew a breath and followed him from the carriage, a little unsteady on her feet. The courtyard bricks stretched wide before them. Above, windows glinted. The building was not the main royal palace, but an old noble residence pressed into service while the king stayed in Segovia. Even so, it was larger and grander than anything Elena had ever entered. Anna clung to her side, eyes darting everywhere. Guards lined the entrance, but their weapons stayed at rest and their faces showed curiosity more than hostility. Servants paused to stare as the small procession passed, the king, the baker, the child between them. Inside, coolness wrapped around them. The wide staircase ahead seemed to climb to the sky. Banners hung from the walls. Elena tried not to gape like a tourist from the countryside. Her worn shoes felt too loud on the polished steps. A woman stood waiting near the top of the stairs, her gown falling in rich folds, her hair covered by a lace mantilla that framed a face both handsome and sharp. "Your Majesty," she said, dropping into a graceful curtsy. "We were told—" Her gaze slid past the king and landed on Anna and Elena. The smallest tightening at the corners of her mouth betrayed her surprise. "Doña Beatriz," the king said, "we will use the small receiving room. I want only you, Father Mateo, and Captain de la Vega present." "At once, sire," she replied. Her eyes flicked again to Elena. "And this woman?" "The baker who has been caring for my child," the king said. The title lodged in Elena's ears. My child. It sounded both natural and surreal. Doña Beatriz examined Elena, head tilting slightly. "I see," she said. "Then we owe her thanks. And answers." Her tone was smooth, but something in it pricked at Elena. She could not yet say why. They were led through a wide corridor, then into a smaller room with tall windows and a table at the center. Chairs sat waiting. Candles burned, though it was still daylight, casting soft light on the faces around. A priest in a plain cassock stood near the fireplace, hands folded. He bowed at the king's entrance. "Your Majesty," he murmured. Beside him stood a man in a dark uniform with modest gold trim at the cuffs. His bearing was stiff, though not in an unfriendly way. His hair was pulled back, his eyes alert. If the guards outside had watched the world, this man seemed to listen to it. "Captain de la Vega," the king said. "We have found my daughter." The captain's eyes widened fractionally, then snapped to Anna and Elena. Surprise flickered across his features, quickly schooled into neutrality. "Then God has been merciful, sire," he said. "You have my congratulations." "Save them," the king replied. "We still have questions. I want you to oversee this matter. No rumor is to leave these walls until I decide what will be said." "As you command," the captain answered. "This is Elena Morales," the king continued. "The baker. She will tell us how the princess came to be in her shop." Elena swallowed. The word princess still seemed shaped for someone else's life, not the thin girl who had sat on her stool, feet swinging above the floor. Doña Beatriz gestured to a chair. "Please, Senora," she said, "sit, you must be tired. This morning cannot have been ordinary." Elena remained standing, a heartbeat too long, unsure of the proper response. "I prefer to stand," she said at last. "Thank you." "As you wish," Doña Beatriz replied, the corners of her mouth quirking as if amused by this stubbornness. The king took a seat, as did the priest and the captain. Anna stayed close to Elena, half hidden in the fold of her skirt. "Begin at the beginning," the king said. "When did you first see her?" So Elena told them. She described the pale face at the window at dawn, the hunger in the girl's eyes, the first piece of bread given in a moment of pity, the mornings that followed, the cups of milk, The attempts at questions she could never fully answer. She kept her voice steady, stopping only when Anna's hand tightened at certain moments, then smoothing the girl's hair before continuing. Doña Beatriz listened with an expression that never quite settled into approval or disapproval. The priest nodded now and then, murmuring something about Christian charity. Captain de la Vega's gaze remained steady, absorbing details. "You are telling us," Doña Beatriz said at one point, "that the child came always alone. No escort, no carriage, no one watching from the shadows." "Yes," Elena said. "She walked along the street like any child. Sometimes she looked over her shoulder. I thought she was afraid of other children or of being scolded for begging. And in all these weeks," Doña Beatriz continued, "it never occurred to you that she might be more than she seemed." Elena's cheeks warmed. "It occurred to me that she was hungry," she said. "Beyond that, I did not allow myself fantasies." "That is not what I asked," the noblewoman replied softly. The king lifted a hand. "Enough, Beatriz," he said. "The fault is not hers. If blame lies anywhere, it is with those who were charged with protecting my daughter before she vanished." The priest murmured, "We must be cautious in assigning fault, sire. We do not yet know how the child left the palace." "Left?" Eleanor repeated, startled. "You mean she disappeared from the palace itself?" All eyes turned to her. "You did not know?" Captain de la Vega asked. "No," Eleanor said. "I have little time for gossip. I knew there were troubles in Madrid, news of wars, rumors of plots, but I never imagined—" Her voice trailed off. The king frowned. "How can someone in Segovia not know that the princess had gone missing?" he demanded. "It has been the talk of every court, every garrison." "In courts and garrisons, perhaps," Elena replied before she thought better of it. "I sell bread to stonecutters and widows, not to ministers." She heard her own tone and winced inwardly. This was not the moment for sharpness. To her surprise, one corner of the captain's mouth lifted, almost like a suppressed smile. Doña Beatriz's eyes, however, narrowed. "A simple life," the noblewoman said, "conveniently simple." "What do you mean?" Eleanor asked. "She means nothing," the king said. "She chooses her words poorly when tired." "Forgive me, sire," Doña Beatriz murmured. "My concern is only that we rule nothing out too quickly. If the child appeared at the shop just as the city braced for your arrival, one might wonder at the coincidence." The implication hung in the air. Elena straightened. "I did not bring her to my shop," she said. "She came. I gave bread. That is all." "People rarely do all," Doña Beatriz replied. "There is almost always one more thing just beneath the surface." "Enough," the king said sharply. Doña Beatriz lowered her eyes. "Of course, sire." Captain de la Vega leaned forward slightly, his voice calm. "Señora Morales," he said, "when you asked the girl where she lived, did she ever say anything that might help us? Names, streets, a description of a house?" Eleanor thought of Anna's halting words. "Only that there was a lady," she said. "A lady who told her there was a game, that she must be brave and not speak. That if she was brave, everything would be as before." The priest crossed himself quietly. "A grave sin," he murmured, "to play with a child's trust." "Did she name this lady?" Rodrigo asked. "No," Elena replied, "but she said something today before we came here. She said they told her to be at my window, that it was important." "They?" Captain de la Vega repeated. "More than one person, then?" "It seems so," Elena said. Silence settled for a moment. The king's fingers tapped lightly on the arm of his chair. "I want discretion," he said finally. "Until we know who dared to take my daughter from me, there will be no public announcements. We will say only that I am resting from travel. The child will stay in the West Wing with a small, trusted staff." He turned to Elena. "And you," he said, "will remain close. She clings to you. It may be through you that we learn what happened." Elena stared. "Remain," she repeated. "For how long, Your Majesty? I have my livelihood." "Do you wish me to send her away from you?" he asked bluntly. The words struck her harder than any order could have. "No," Elena said at once. "I do not wish that." "Then accept what I offer," he said. "Your bakery will be protected. You will not suffer for your absence. In return, you will stay where my daughter can find you when she wakes from her nightmares." The matter was decided. She wanted to argue, to say that she had not asked for this, that she was only a woman who baked bread. But Anna's hand crept into hers again, small and trusting. The king's gaze had already moved on to the captain. "Rodrigo," he said, "you will oversee the security of this wing. I want a list of every person who knew the layout of my private apartments before my daughter vanished. Every servant, every guard, every so-called friend." "Yes, sire," Captain de la Vega replied. "I will begin at once." "And Beatrice," the king continued, "you will handle the household arrangements. Choose only those whose loyalty is proven." "Of course, your majesty," she said. "The child will want for nothing." Elena noticed that Doña Beatriz did not look at Anna when she said it. Her eyes were on the king. The meeting ended. The priest murmured a blessing. The king bent down and, very carefully, placed a hand on Anna's head. She went stiff, but did not pull away. "We have time," he said softly. "We will learn to know one another again." He straightened and left, surrounded by a small retinue. Doña Beatriz approached Elena. "You must be tired," she said. "I will have a room prepared for you near the princess, a modest one, but safe." "Safe from what?" Elena asked without thinking. The noblewoman's smile did not reach her eyes. "From questions," she replied. "From people who might come to your bakery and trouble you. From curious minds. Believe me, Senora, safety is a treasure in times like these." She turned to Anna. "Your Highness," she said with practiced grace, "we will see that you have a warm bed and new gowns. All this will soon be only a bad dream." Anna's fingers tightened around Elena's. "I want to stay with Elena," she said. "You shall," Doña Beatriz answered smoothly. "For the moment. The king has said so." There was the faintest emphasis on "for the moment." They were led through another corridor to a smaller set of rooms. One was large and bright, with a bed covered in linens that gleamed faintly. The other was adjoining, much smaller, with a narrow bed and a simple chest. "This will be yours," a maid said to Elena. "If you need anything, pull the bell." Elena looked around. "No locks?" she asked, glancing at the door. "A guard will be posted outside," the maid said, "for your protection and the princess's." Again, that word. Protection. When the maid left, Anna immediately clambered onto Elena's bed and sat cross-legged. "I do not like it here," she said. "It smells strange." "It smells clean," Elena said, dropping her bundle, little more than the apron she wore and the cloth she carried. "And it is warm, that is something." "I like the bakery," Anna insisted. "It smelled of bread." Elena sat beside her. "So did your hair half the time," she said. "You left crumbs everywhere." Anna offered a small, wavering smile. "Will you bake here?" she asked. "I cannot bake here," Elena answered. "There is no oven in this room." "Then I will be hungry," Anna said, as if the problem had no solution. "You will not go hungry in a palace," Elena said. "They will bring plates piled too high with food you cannot pronounce." "I want your bread," Anna said. Elena's heart squeezed. "We will find a way," she said. "For now, eat what they give you. Only kings are foolish enough to leave their food untouched." There was a soft knock at the door. "Come in," Elena called. The door opened just enough for Captain de la Vega to look in. "Forgive the intrusion," he said. "May I speak with you a moment, Senora Morales?" Elena stood automatically. "Yes, Captain," she said. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him, but not fully, leaving it ajar by a hand's breadth. It was a small courtesy, a sign that he did not wish to trap her. "I wanted to assure you," he said, "that your bakery is being watched. We have posted a trustworthy man. He has already spoken with your neighbor, Teresa. She took your words about the ovens very seriously." Eleanor let out a breath she had not known she was holding. "Thank you," she said. "I did not want everything to burn while I sat in a room I did not ask for." Rodrigo's gaze moved briefly to Anna, then back. "I also wished," he continued, "to say that I do not consider you a criminal, Senora. There are those who will look at you and see opportunity. A convenient figure to blame should the truth prove uncomfortable. I do not intend to let that happen without cause." "That is comforting," Eleanor said dryly. "Being told I will not be unjustly blamed unless it is convenient." His mouth tightened. "I chose my words poorly," he admitted. "I mean only this. I am a servant of the crown, but I am not blind. The story you told rings true. The child's attachment to you speaks louder than many testimonies. If I find evidence that someone in this house is lying, I will not look the other way. She studied him. Do men in uniform often speak so plainly? She asked. Rarely, he said, but today seems to be a day for exceptions. For the first time, a small, reluctant smile touched her lips. Then I thank you, she said. He inclined his head. Rest, he advised. These walls have many ears. Save your strength for when your voice is truly needed. When he left, the door clicked softly behind him. Afternoon faded toward evening. A tray arrived with food, meats, bread, fruit. Anna picked at it, clearly overwhelmed by the variety. Eleanor coaxed her to eat at least a little of everything. Like a queen, she teased lightly, or a princess. It would be a sin to leave these grapes untouched. I like your grapes better, Anna said. My grapes are bought from the same market as theirs, Elena replied. Do not blame the fruit, because it comes on a silver tray. After the meal, servants came with warm water, brushing and braiding Anna's hair with murmurs of admiration. The girl endured it, her eyes always seeking Eleanor, as if afraid she might vanish the moment her back was turned. When at last the palace quieted, and the steady murmur of activity beyond their door softened, Anna fell asleep in the large bed in the adjoining room. She had refused to lie down, until Elena promised to stay within reach. I am here, Elena said, sitting on the edge of the bed until Anna's breathing slowed. I am not going anywhere. Only then did she return to her smaller room. She sat on the narrow bed, hands in her lap, listening. The palace at night sounded different from the streets. No dogs barking, no carts rattling over stones, just footsteps in corridors, the faint clink of distant dishes, the occasional murmur of voices. She lay down without undressing fully, unable to shake the feeling that she might be summoned at any moment. The sheets were clean and crisp, too fine for her. Sleep did not come easily. Some time later, as the candle on her small table burned low, she heard footsteps halt outside her door. Voices followed. Low, controlled. She is only a baker, a woman's voice said softly. Elena recognized the cool smoothness of Doña Beatriz. She has no power. Once the story is arranged, she will say what is needed. And if she refuses, a man's voice asked. Elena could not place it. There was the faintest pause. Then we remind her what she stands to lose, Doña Beatriz replied. Her shop, her freedom, the child's safety. Some people need only to be shown their place. And if even that does not quiet her, the man persisted. The answer came, barely above a whisper, but sharp as a knife. Then we ensure she never speaks where anyone of consequence can hear her. Eleanor lay rigid in the bed, every muscle tense, her breath shallow, as the footsteps moved away down the corridor. Eleanor did not sleep after the voices faded. She lay staring into the dark, listening to the echo of Doña Beatriz's words. We ensure she never speaks where anyone of consequence can hear her. The softness of the tone made it worse. It was not anger. It was certainty. By the time the pale light of morning crept through the shutter, her eyes burned and her body felt heavy. But there was no time to lie still. A soft knock came at the door. Elena? Anna's small voice called. Are you awake? Elena sat up at once. Yes, pequeña, come in. Anna slipped inside, bare feet silent on the floor, hair rumpled from sleep. Are we still here? She asked, looking around as if the walls might have vanished in the night. Yes, Elena said. It seems we are. I dreamed of the bakery, Anna said. I dreamed we were there and no one knew I was a princess. Elena gave a faint smile. You were happier in that dream, I think. Anna nodded. A maid arrived with water and a tray. She bobbed a quick curtsy. Doña Beatriz asks that you be ready soon, señora, she said. There will be a small meeting. Important people. Important people never sleep, it seems, Elena murmured. The maid swallowed a smile and backed out. Anna climbed onto the bed and watched Elena wash her face. Will they ask me questions? Anna asked. Perhaps, Elena said. If they do, you answer what you can. No more, no less. What if they are angry? Anna whispered. Then they are foolish, Elena replied, because none of this is your fault. She spoke with more certainty than she felt. Later, in the same receiving room as the day before, the air felt thicker. Doña Beatriz stood by the window, speaking in low tones, with a grey-haired man Elena had not seen before. His coat was elegant, but not showy, There was a certain stiffness to his posture that reminded her of an accountant or a magistrate. Captain de la Vega waited near the door, hands behind his back, expression guarded. When Elena entered with Ana, all eyes turned. "Good morning, Señora Morales," the grey-haired man said. His voice was dry but polite. "I am Don Esteban Salcedo, legal advisor to His Majesty. I am here to assist with the formalities." "Formalities?" Elena repeated. He motioned toward the table. "Please, sit." This time she did. Her legs felt uncertain. Ana hovered close, half behind her chair. "Where is the king?" Elena asked. "With his council," Doña Beatriz replied. "He has entrusted this matter to those who can spare him unnecessary details." Elena did not like the sound of that. Don Esteban opened a folder and laid out several sheets of carefully written text. "We have prepared a declaration," he said. "A simple statement of facts. It will serve to clarify the situation in case of future questions." Eleanor's gaze dropped to the papers. The letters were neat, the ink dark. She could read, though not as quickly as some of these people probably did. Her education had come from an old priest and a father who thought a daughter should at least know what she was selling in ledgers. She read aloud, haltingly. "I, Elena Morales, baker of Segovia, found a young girl on the road outside the city, alone and disoriented, some days before." She stopped. "This is not true," she said. Don Esteban clasped his hands calmly. "Which part troubles you, Señora?" he asked. "All of it," she replied. "I did not find her on the road. I saw her at my window. In the city, she was not disoriented. She was hungry, and it was not some days before, it was weeks. You heard me say so yesterday." Doña Beatriz stepped closer, her expression patient, almost maternal. "No one doubts your memory," she said, "but people's understanding is fragile. They need simple stories. If word spreads that the princess wandered the streets for weeks, unattended, imagine the scandal. Enemies of the crown would rejoice. We must protect His Majesty from unjust criticism." "And the truth?" Elena asked. "The truth is that she was recovered," Don Esteban said. "Healthy, alive, thanks in part to your generosity. Must we dwell on every unpleasant detail?" "Yes," Elena said. "If you ask me to sign my name to it, we must." Captain de la Vega's gaze flicked to her, then to Don Esteban. "The king values clarity," he said quietly. "If we simplify too much, we risk hiding useful information." Doña Beatriz's eyes cooled. "The king values stability," she countered, "as do we all. And stability depends on stories people can bear to hear." Don Esteban slid another sheet toward Elena. "If we write that the child came every day for weeks," he said, "we must also ask why no one noticed, why no one acted sooner. Why you did not speak up, Señora. The questions would not be kind." "I did not speak because I did not know who she was," Elena said. "I saw only a hungry child. No one asks a baker to report every hungry child in Segovia to the palace. And yet," Doña Beatriz said softly, "this particular child was no ordinary hungry girl. That is the unfortunate part." Elena's fingers tightened on the edge of the table. "You mean it is unfortunate for you," she said. "For the king, for those who failed her, not for her or for me." The noblewoman's smile thinned. "You have a sharp tongue for someone in such a precarious position," she observed. "My position would be less precarious if you were not trying to bend my words," Elena shot back. "Enough," Don Esteban murmured, raising a hand. "We are not enemies here. We are all trying to resolve a delicate matter." He tapped the paper. "Consider this, Señora. If you sign, you give the kingdom a story that calms rather than inflames. You protect the king from unjust blame, and you yourself avoid the unpleasantness of repeated interrogations. Your life can return to something like normal with the added benefit of royal favor." "And if I refuse?" Elena asked. "Then matters become untidy," he said. "Others will come with questions. They may not be as courteous. They may wonder if you had a reason to keep silent. They may look closely at your accounts, your acquaintances, your habits. It is rarely pleasant to be the focus of such interest." "That sounds like a threat," Elena said. "It is simply an observation," he replied. Doña Beatriz rested her fingertips lightly on the table. "We know you care for the child," she said. "If you truly wish to protect her, think of what serves her best. Do you want her to grow up hearing that her father failed her? That people whispered that she ate scraps in the streets while the king held feasts? Children drink in such stories. They sour the heart. Elena looked down at the papers again. Write the truth, she said. I will sign that. The truth, Don Esteban repeated gently, is a matter of perspective. Fishermen, bakers, kings, they each tell a different story of the same storm. The storm is the same, Elena said. The water is just as cold. Silence fell. Captain de la Vega shifted his weight. May I make a suggestion? He asked. Doña Beatrice's jaw tightened, but she inclined her head. Speak, Captain. Why not record both elements? He said. That the child was first seen some days before by the baker, who did not recognize her. That out of fear or humility, she did not know how to approach the authorities. Then that she was subsequently found more recently near the city gate, which is where soldiers could say they saw her. In this way, the king's search is not diminished, and the baker's role is acknowledged without too much gossip. And my supposed fear or humility, Elena asked. You will write that too? It is kinder than some alternatives people might invent, Rodrigo said, and it preserves something of the truth. Something of it, Elena repeated. Doña Beatrice's eyes moved between them. You seem most eager to defend this woman, Captain, she remarked. I am eager to defend the king from clumsy falsehoods that may one day be exposed, he replied evenly. Lies, even small ones, have a way of rotting foundations. I have seen it too often. Don Esteban exhaled. Very well, he said. We may adjust the language, but we must still present a version that protects the crown. Señora Morales, will you at least agree not to speak to anyone outside this room of the details you have shared? You wish me to be silent, even if I will not sign your story? Elena asked. Yes, he said, for now. Until His Majesty decides what will be made public. What happens if someone asks me in the street? She said. If a neighbor demands to know. You will say that it is not your story to tell, Doña Beatriz answered smoothly, that the king speaks for his house, and you for your bread. Elena thought of the voices outside her door last night, of the easy way they had spoken of ensuring she never spoke where it mattered. I cannot promise silence, she said slowly, but I can promise I will not seek out ears. If someone presses me, I will not lie. That is all I can say. Doña Beatriz's eyes hardened. Stubborn, she murmured. Honest, Rodrigo countered. He met Elena's gaze for a moment. There was something almost like respect there. The meeting dragged on. They changed phrases, crossed out words, argued over details. In the end, nothing was resolved beyond a vague promise to revisit the declaration later. As they were dismissed, Don Esteban said, Remember, Señora, the more you resist, the more attention you draw. Attention is a dangerous flame. I work with ovens, Elena replied. I know something about flames. She led Anna from the room before they could answer. In the corridor, Anna tugged at her hand. Why are they angry? She asked. They are afraid, Elena said. Of what? Of losing what they have, Elena replied. Power, reputation, the things that matter to them. And what do you have? Anna asked. Elena thought of her small shop, her kneading trough, the little coins in a wooden box. Not enough to fear so much, she said. Later in the day, Captain de la Vega appeared at her door again. May I? He asked. Yes, Elena said. Come in. He stepped inside, closed the door partly, and leaned against it, looking more tired than before. You did not make friends this morning, he said. I did not come here to make friends, Elena replied. I came because your king decided it. True, he said, but we must work with what is, not with what we wish. She folded her arms. So what is, Captain? What is, he said, is that there are people in this house who would like you to sign whatever paper they put in front of you, smile, and disappear quietly when the story no longer needs you. There are others who, frankly, do not care what you do as long as the princess is safe. And there are a few, only a few, who think the king deserves the full truth, whether it is convenient or not. And you? She asked. Which are you? He hesitated. I serve the crown, he said, as if reciting something learned long ago. Then he added, but I also serve my conscience. It is less forgiving than any king. She looked at him more closely. You heard them, she said, outside my door last night. His eyes sharpened. What did you hear? She repeated the conversation. Doña Beatrice's voice. The man's questions. The quiet, cold suggestion that she might be silenced. Rodrigo's jaw tightened. Did they know you listened? He asked. No, she said. I did not move. I hardly breathed. Good, he said. Keep it that way. Do not let them know how much you heard. Words spoken in confidence are like ropes. If you pull too hard, they tighten around your own neck. Is that your poetic way of telling me to be cautious? She asked. Yes, he said simply. Anna peered from the adjoining room. Are they going to send us away? She asked. Rodrigo's face softened when he saw her. No, he said. No one will send you away, not without the king's word. And he would not do that now. Can we see the bakery? Anna asked suddenly. Just for a little while? Eleanor blinked. I do not think that is allowed, she said. Rodrigo considered. Not today, he said, but perhaps soon, under escort. If His Majesty agrees, and if it is useful for people to see that the princess is safe, that would make them kinder to Elena, Anna said with the strange logic of a child. If they see me with her. Rodrigo gave Elena a thoughtful look. She may be right, he said. A public gesture, even a small one, can change the way people whisper. I do not care how they whisper, Elena said stubbornly. You will, he replied, if they whisper loudly enough. That evening, after a restless day of small tasks and too many watchful eyes, a summons came. The king wished to see Eleanor and Anna in a more private setting. They found him in a smaller sitting room, without the trappings of formal court. No advisers, no priests, only one servant who withdrew as soon as they entered. Alfonso stood by the window, looking out over the city as the light faded. Come in, he said, turning. Anna hesitated, then walked toward him, still holding Elena's hand. The king bent slightly, to be closer to her height. Have they treated you well? He asked. Anna shrugged. They fuss over my hair, she said. I do not like so many hands. I know, he said. I have never liked it either. She looked up at him with surprise. How, you do not? No, he said. A crown is heavier than it looks. He glanced at Elena. And you? He asked. Do you lack anything? Bread, she said automatically, then managed a small smile. But I suppose I can endure a few days without flour under my nails. He almost smiled in return. I owe you more than I can say, he said, for feeding her, for not turning her away. You owe me nothing, Eleanor replied. I did what any decent person should do. Do not underestimate decency, he said. It is rarer than you think. He gestured toward chairs. Sit. I wish to hear from you without other ears crowding in. They sat. Anna perched between them, looking from one face to the other. I am told they pressed you today, the king said, about your statement. They did, Elena said. And you did not sign, he added. No, she said. What they wrote was not true. His gaze did not waver. You understand, he said, that if people learn how long she wandered, they will say I failed her, that my court failed her, that I am unfit to protect my own house, much less the kingdom. Yes, Elena said, I understand. And still you insist on the full story. Yes, she said again. Why? He asked. Because if we start by lying about where she has been, she replied, we will never find out how she got there. His lips parted slightly, as if that answer had nudged something in him. You think the truth will help us find those responsible, he said. I think lies will help them hide, she answered. He looked at Anna, who sat quietly listening. Do you remember, he asked the girl, how you left the palace? Anna's brows drew together. There was a lady, she said slowly. She came to my room. She said we would play, that we would go somewhere secret, that I must not tell anyone, or the game would be spoiled. She said you knew. I did not know, the king said, voice tight. She said you did, Anna insisted, distressed. She said you would be proud. Do you remember her name? Eleanor asked softly. Anna bit her lip. She told me a name, she said, but then she said I must call her my lady and not say her other name, because if I said it, the game would be over too soon. Did she give you anything? Rodrigo's question from earlier echoed in Elena's memory. Anna, she said, do you have anything from her? A ribbon? A trinket? Something she said was for you." The girl hesitated. Her fingers went to the neckline of her dress, where a small bump pressed against the cloth. "She gave me this," she said in a whisper. "Can we see it?" Elena asked. Slowly, as if afraid the walls themselves might object, Anna pulled out a small pendant on a thin cord. The metal was worn at the edges, but an engraved crest was still visible. Elena did not recognize it, but she knew enough to see that it was not simple. "Who else has seen this?" she asked. "No one," Anna said. "She said never to show it. That if I did, the game would be ruined and they would send me away to a place where no one knew me." Elena's throat tightened. The king reached out with careful fingers. "May I?" he asked. Anna studied his face, then nodded. He took the pendant, turned it over, and froze. For a moment, all color drained from his cheeks. "This," he said, "belongs to the house of Mendonza." "Mendonza?" Elena repeated. Doña Beatrice's family name settled in the air like a stone dropped in water. The king closed his hand around the pendant. "Who else knows you have this?" he asked again, more urgently. "No one," Anna said. "Only you and Elena. And now," her eyes flicked toward the door as if someone might be listening. The king looked at Elena. "Do not speak of this," he said, "to anyone. Not even to the captain. Not yet. If you keep it only between us," Elena said quietly, "how will you stop whoever did this?" He was silent for a long moment. "There will be a formal gathering soon," he said at last. "The court will expect to see that my daughter is truly found. I had thought to keep the story simple. Now I see that simplicity may be a luxury we cannot afford." "You will speak of this pendant?" Elena asked. "Perhaps," he said, "or perhaps I will let questions lead to it." He handed the pendant back to Anna. "Keep it hidden," he said, "but not forgotten." She nodded solemnly and tucked it beneath her dress. That night, as Elena prepared for bed, there was another quiet knock at her door. It was Rodrigo again. "Walk with me," he said, "if you are not too tired." "I am very tired," she said, "but I cannot sleep, so it seems I have strength to spare." They moved along the corridor at a slow pace. Lamps burned at intervals, their light soft. "I have been in the city," Rodrigo said. "In your square." Eleanor looked at him sharply. "My bakery?" "Yes," he said. "Do not worry, it still stands. Your neighbor guards it like a small fortress. No one has broken your windows, but there are whispers." "Whispers of what?" she asked. "That you hid the princess for your own gain," he said. "That you plan to demand a reward, that you are part of a plot, or that you are a saint. Opinions are cheap. Everyone buys one and pays with breath." "And which do you buy?" she asked. "None," he said. "I prefer to wait for coin I can hold." They turned a corner. "I saw something else," he added. "A woman asking questions about you. Not a neighbor, not a buyer. Well-dressed, traveling with a small companion. She asked when you began feeding the child, how often, whether anyone ever saw another person near her." "Did she give a name?" Eleanor asked. "No," he said, "but a boy at the well overheard someone call her my lady." Eleanor stopped walking. "Anna's lady," she whispered. "It is possible," he said. "I could not confront her without cause, but it tells me this. The game is not over. Whoever moved the child like a piece on a board is still watching the table." They resumed walking. "There will be a public audience soon," Rodrigo said. "The king plans to show the princess to the court. It will be the beginning of whatever story is told." "And what story will that be?" Elena asked. "I do not know," he said. "He struggles between fear and anger. Fear for his throne, anger for his daughter. Men in such turmoil are unpredictable." "Do you trust him?" she asked. "I trust that he loves his child," Rodrigo said. "Sometimes that is enough." They reached a small window overlooking the city. Lights glimmered below. "Senora Morales," Rodrigo said quietly, "may I speak plainly?" "You have been doing little else," she replied. He almost smiled. "In that audience," he said, "you may be asked to confirm an official version of events, one that has been polished. If you choose to correct it, to say more than is comfortable, you will not be easily forgiven by those who prefer smooth paths." "You mean Doña Beatriz?" Elena said. "I mean all who share her fear," he replied. "If you stay silent, you may secure peace for yourself. If you speak, you may stir waters that have been still too long. She looked out at the city. What would you do? She asked. I am not in your place, he said. I carry a different burden. But if you ask me as a man, not as an officer, I will say this. The child deserves to know one day that someone chose truth over comfort. And what do you risk if I speak? She asked. Perhaps my position, he said. Perhaps nothing. Perhaps everything. I cannot say. But that is not your concern. Do not carry my fears along with your own. She studied his profile in the dim light. You could still decide I am part of this, she said. You could still decide I am lying. I could, he agreed, but I do not. Why? She pressed. Because you have had every chance to save yourself with a small lie, he said, and you refuse. People who plot rarely find such lies difficult. They walked back in silence. At her door, he paused. Whatever you decide in that hall, he said, do not decide in fear. Fear twists words. Speak from the same place you spoke in your shop when you first gave the child bread. That will be enough. And if it is not, she asked. He held her gaze. Then I will stand where you stand, he said quietly. As far as my office allows, perhaps even further. He left before she could answer. The next day passed in a strange calm. Servants whispered about preparations in the great hall. The air felt full of expectation. Anna stayed close, more restless than usual. Why is everyone so busy? She asked. They are planning a gathering, Elena said. A very grand one. Will we be there? Anna asked. Yes, Elena said. We will. Will they ask me to speak? The girl whispered. Perhaps, Elena replied. But you do not have to say more than you remember. No more games. No more promises that hurt you. Anna nodded, but her hand found her pendant again. As evening drew near, a messenger arrived at Elena's door with a sealed note. She broke the seal and read aloud. Tomorrow, at the 2nd hour past noon, she murmured, you will present yourself in the great hall, in the presence of His Majesty and the assembled court. You will be called upon to testify regarding the recovery of the princess. Her heart beat faster. Is it about the game? Anna asked. It is about the truth, Elena said. She folded the note. On impulse, she turned to Anna. Show me, she said. Once more, Anna took out the pendant. The metal glinted faintly. Elena held it in her palm, feeling its weight. A small thing, yet heavy. Somewhere in the house, someone must be wondering if it had been lost forever. Elena, Anna said softly, will everything be all right? Elena closed her fingers around the pendant and looked at the child who had once stood silently at her window, no one seeing her but a baker with flour on her hands. I do not know, Elena answered truthfully. But I know this. When they ask me where you have been, I will not pretend you were never hungry. She pressed the pendant back into Anna's hand. Keep it close, she said. Tomorrow what you remember, and what this little piece of metal tells us may be the only weapons we have. Anna's eyes widened. Will they be angry? She whispered. Some of them will, Elena said. But some will be grateful. And the rest will show us who they truly are. She watched Anna tuck the pendant beneath her dress again, the cord disappearing against her skin, and realized that the choice she made in that room could secure the girl's future, or place all of them at the mercy of those who preferred silence. On the morning of the audience, the palace woke earlier than usual. Footsteps hurried past Elena's door. Voices rose and fell in the corridor. Doors opened and closed. Somewhere someone laughed too loudly. The sound clipped off as if they remembered too late that this was not a day for easy joy. Eleanor braided her hair with fingers that did not quite feel steady. Anna sat on the bed, swinging her feet, dressed in a simple but fine gown the maids had chosen. White ribbon threaded her dark hair. She looked very young. Does it hurt? Anna asked quietly. Does what hurt? Elena said. When people look at you, the girl said. The way they did yesterday. Like they want you to say what they already decided. Elena paused, then tied the end of her braid. It stings, she admitted, but it does not wound if you do not let it inside. Anna nodded slowly, as if memorizing that. A knock came. Elena, Your Highness, a maid called. We are asked to bring you to the hall. They walked together through the corridor. Guards stood at intervals, more numerous than before. Their presence felt less like protection now, and more like a reminder. This was not entirely their world. At the entrance to the great hall, Rodrigo waited. He had changed his uniform for one more formal, with a dark sash across his chest. His hair was tied neatly, yet his expression when he saw them was not that of a distant officer. There was something quieter in it. "Steady. You are on time," he said. "That will impress them. They are used to people making the king wait." "I have spent my life rising before dawn," Elena replied. It would be strange to begin arriving late now. Anna slipped her hand into his free one without thinking. "Will you stay near us?" she asked. "Yes," he said. "I will stand by the door, close enough to hear. If at any moment you feel overwhelmed, look at me. I will not speak, but I will be here." Elena held his gaze a moment longer than propriety required. "Thank you," she said. Inside, the hall was already full. Nobles in fine clothes crowded the space. Courtiers lined the walls. A raised platform held 2 chairs, one for the king, one for his daughter. Above them, banners hung with royal arms. Elena had never seen so many people dressed so carefully. Yet for all the silk and lace, the air felt tense. Voices dropped as she and Anna walked in. Curiosity sharpened like a blade, though no weapons were drawn. The king stood near his seat, speaking with Don Esteban and Doña Beatriz. When he saw Anna, he straightened. "Bring them forward," he said. A path opened through the assembled court. People stepped aside, murmuring. Elena felt eyes on her like heat on her skin. She kept her chin level, her hand firmly around Anna's. They stopped before the platform. "Your Majesty," Elena said, bowing her head. "Señora Morales." "Anna Isabel," he replied. "Thank you for coming." He looked out at the court. "Today," he said, his voice carrying easily, "you stand in the presence not only of your king but of your princess returned. Months ago, wickedness touched this house. My child disappeared from within my own walls. We searched, we prayed, we feared the worst." A murmur ran through the hall. "Now," the king continued, "by God's mercy, she has been found. But mercy does not erase wrong. We must understand what happened so that such a thing never occurs again." He gestured toward Anna. "Come, Hija," he said more gently. "Sit here." She climbed the steps slowly, her hand leaving Elena's with reluctance. The king helped her into the smaller chair beside his own. The sight of her there, small yet composed, sent another ripple through the crowd. Doña Beatriz stepped forward. "If it pleases your Majesty," she said, "perhaps your advisor might ask the first questions. It may be easier for the court to follow if we proceed carefully." The king nodded. "Don Esteban," he said. The legal advisor moved to stand where all could see him. "Señora Elena Morales," he said, "please remain where you are. We will speak so that all may hear." Elena stood straight. "Tell us," Don Esteban began, "in your own words, how you came to know the child now recognized as the princess." She spoke. Her voice was clear, carrying better than she expected in the large room. She described once more the morning she first saw Anna's face at the window. The bread, the daily visits, the quiet thank you that never included a family name. She did not embellish, she did not soften. "And did you know," Don Esteban asked, "that the princess had gone missing?" "No," she said. "I knew only that the price of flour kept rising. I knew only that someone's child was hungry." A few people in the crowd shifted, a faint stir of embarrassment, perhaps. Don Esteban continued. "Some have suggested," he said carefully, "that a woman of your intelligence might have suspected she was more than she appeared, that perhaps you chose not to act because you feared involvement. What do you say to that?" "I say," Elena answered, "that rumors move faster through palaces than through bakeries. No one came to my door and asked if I had seen a princess. If they had, I might have looked more closely. But when you see dozens of hungry children after a war, you do not assume each one is royal." A few voices chuckled softly, quickly suppressed. "So you did not recognize her as the king's daughter," Don Esteban summarized. "No," Elena said. "I recognized her as a child. That was enough for me." The king's head turned slightly, his eyes on her. Don Esteban hesitated, as if balancing something in his mind. "Señora," he said, "there were those who counseled a simpler story for the sake of peace. A version where you found the child only recently and brought her at once to the authorities. You refused to sign such a statement. Do you still refuse?" Yes, Elena said. Why? He pressed. Because it is not what happened, she replied. And because if we hide that she walked the streets for weeks, we invite those who allowed it to think they may do so again without consequence. A low murmur ran through the hall, sharper than before. Doña Beatrice's face remained smooth, but a faint flush appeared at her throat. The fault, she said suddenly, addressing the room, does not lie in the baker's stubbornness. Children can slip even the keenest watch. In troubled times, dangers multiply. We must be cautious in blaming those who served the crown faithfully for years. No one is naming names yet, Beatrice, the king said quietly. Perhaps not, she replied, her gaze flicking to Elena. But some people's words point in certain directions. Elena felt the weight of that look. She also felt Rodrigo's steady gaze from the side of the hall. Don Esteban cleared his throat. Let us turn for a moment to the child herself, he said. Your Highness, his voice gentle. Anna Isabel, do you remember how you left the palace? Anna shifted in her seat. Her small hands twisted in her lap. There was a lady, she said, barely above a whisper. Speak a little louder, child, Don Esteban encouraged, so we may all hear you. Anna forced herself. There was a lady, she repeated. She came to my room. She said we would play a secret game, that we would go for a walk like ordinary people. She said I must be brave and not talk to anyone, and that I must not say her name. Why not? Don Esteban asked. Because then the game would be over, Anna said. And you would be angry, Papa. The king's jaw tightened. Did she take you alone? Don Esteban continued. There was another person, Anna said, frowning. A man. He drove the carriage. He did not speak much. He only told me to sit low if we passed soldiers. And you did not think this strange? Don Esteban asked gently. She said you knew, Anna whispered to the king. She said you wanted me to see how other children lived. She said you wanted me to be brave. The pain in the king's eyes deepened. I did not know, he said, his voice raw. You were tricked. But I promised, Anna said. I promised not to tell, because I wanted you to be proud. Elena's hands clenched at her sides. Your Highness, Don Esteban said, do you remember anything else? A house? A street? A name? Anna's fingers lifted to her collar. She gave me something, she said. She said it would mean she was always with me, even if I could not say her name. A token? Don Esteban asked. Do you have it with you? Anna looked uncertainly at her father. It is all right, the king said. Show them. With slow movements, Anna took out the pendant. The cord slid over her head. The small metal piece swung in the air, catching light. The hall seemed to inhale. Several people in the crowd leaned forward, eyes narrowing. A few exchanged glances. Don Esteban took the pendant carefully and turned it so that everyone could see the engraved crest. This, he said, his voice suddenly sharper, bears the arms of the House of Mendonza. Whispers burst out. The Mendonzas! But they were the first to offer help in the search. They held prayers. They would never— Silence, the king said. He did not raise his voice, yet the word cut through the noise. All eyes turned to where Doña Beatriz stood. Her expression had not changed much, but the color had drained from her cheeks. That crest belongs to many in my family, she said calmly. It proves nothing. A servant may have taken it, a cousin. One cannot jump to conclusions based on a trinket. How many trinkets do you habitually entrust to small children? The king asked, without knowing where they go. She inclined her head slightly. As your majesty knows, she said, my house has always been generous. We give to many. It may have passed through several hands. It did not feel like several hands when it was placed around my neck, Anna said, surprising everyone by speaking without being prompted. It was the same hand that took mine that night. The hall stilled again. Child, Doña Beatriz said with a smoothness that frayed at the edges. Memory is a fragile thing. You have been through much, are you certain? Anna looked toward Elena. Elena lifted her chin. Think only of what you remember, she said softly, not of what they wish you to remember. Anna drew a breath. I am certain, she said. She turned to her father. She told me to call her my lady, but once, when she thought I was asleep, someone else called her Doña Beatriz. The name dropped into the hall like a stone into a pool. Silence. Then an eruption of voices, sharper, angrier. The king's own advisor. Impossible. She would not dare. The king rose to his feet. "Enough," he said. "There will be order." The hall quieted, but the tension did not ease. He looked at Doña Beatriz. "For years," he said, "I trusted you. I allowed you near my family. I listened to your counsel. When my daughter vanished, you wept with me. You urged certain measures. You dismissed others." "I did my duty," she said quickly. "I grieved with you. I advised caution." "You advised against questioning certain households," he said. "Certain guards. You said it would be insulting. You insisted the palace itself could not be at fault." "Because I believed it," she replied. "Because I believed we were betrayed from outside, not within." He looked at the pendant in Don Esteban's hand. "And yet this piece of metal found its way to my child," he said. "And my child's memory places you at her side when she left." "It is one child's memory," she protested. "Shaped by fear and misfortune, she lived weeks in poverty. Who knows what stories she heard? What if someone told her to say my name? Your enemies would rejoice if you turned on your most loyal servants." Don Esteban's face was grave. "Your Majesty," he said, "we cannot condemn on one piece of evidence, but we cannot ignore it either. For the time being, prudence demands—" "Yes," the king said. "Prudence demands." He looked at Doña Beatriz. "Beatriz de Mendoza," he said slowly, "I do not pass final judgment today. But from this moment you are relieved of your duties. You will withdraw from court to your estate. You will not receive visitors without my sanction. There will be an inquiry. Your household will be questioned. If you are innocent, it will be proven. If you are guilty—" He did not finish the sentence, but the hall knew the weight of what he did not say. Doña Beatriz's composure cracked for the first time. "Exile," she said softly. "On the word of a baker and a child? On the word of a princess," he corrected. "And the logic of what we have seen." Her eyes flashed toward Elena. "You have done this," she said, low but fierce. "You who fed her in secret and now feed the king doubts. Do you know what world you step into when you drag us all into your love of truth?" Elena met her gaze steadily. "A world," she said, "where a child is not used as a piece in someone's game." Doña Beatriz's nostrils flared. "You will not enjoy it," she said. "That world." "Perhaps not," Elena replied, "but she will be safer in it." Doña Beatriz turned back to the king. "I obey, as I always have," she said, voice tight. She curtsied stiffly. "May your Majesty one day see whom he has cast away." She walked from the hall, spine straight, attendants scattering before her. A low wave of whispers followed in her wake. The king remained standing. "There will be others questioned," he said to the court. "This is not a spectacle. It is a wound being cleaned. If any here know more than they have said, now is the time to come forward. My patience for silence is thin." No one stepped forward. Not yet, but there were sidelong glances, nervous adjustments of collars, sweat at temples. Don Esteban bowed. "Your Majesty has acted with wisdom," he said. "We shall see," the king replied. He seated himself again and looked at Elena. "You have given us much to consider," he said. "I have given only what I saw," she answered. "That is more than many," he said. He turned to face the hall. "Let it be known," he said, "that Elena Morales of Segovia is innocent of any wrongdoing in this matter. She is the woman who fed my daughter when I could not. For that she has my gratitude. If I hear one word spoken against her honor, it will be answered directly by me." The effect was immediate. The air shifted. Eyes on Eleanor changed. Where there had been suspicion, there was now calculation, respect, even sudden admiration. It felt strange, and she trusted it less than she trusted their earlier distrust. But she accepted the protection in his words. For Anna's sake, if not for her own. The formal part of the audience moved on. A few courageous nobles stepped forward to offer pledges of renewed loyalty. The king accepted with measured grace. His face remained drawn, but there was a clearer strength in his eyes. When it was finally over, and the court began to disassemble in a murmur of silk and whispers, Elena stood where she was, a little dazed. Anna slipped down from her chair and ran back to her side. "Is it finished?" the girl asked. "For today," Elena said. "Did we do right?" Anna asked. "Yes," Elena said. "You told the truth. There is no righter thing." The king came down from the platform. "May I walk with you?" he asked. It was a strange question from a king. "Yes, Your Majesty," Elena replied. They walked together toward a side door, Anna between them. Rodrigo followed at a respectful distance, along with Don Esteban, who soon veered off to speak with someone. In the quieter corridor, away from the eyes of the hall, the king exhaled slowly. "I have sent away a friend of many years," he said, "or someone I thought was a friend." "I am sorry," Eleanor said. "So am I," he replied, "but I am more sorry that my daughter was led out of her own home under the pretense of a game. That cannot stand." He paused and looked at her. "You have changed much in a few days, Señora Morales," he said. "So have you, sire," she answered. He gave a brief, surprised laugh. "Perhaps we both were forced to," he said. Anna tugged on his hand. "Papa?" "Yes? Can we go to the bakery one day?" she asked. "I miss it. I miss the stool and the way it smells." He smiled faintly. "Still thinking of bread," he said. "You are truly my child." He considered. "Yes," he said. "We will go. Not as a spectacle. Quietly, when the dust settles. A king should know the place where his daughter was cared for." Anna beamed. "And can Elena come and go from the palace?" she asked. "Or will she always have to stay here?" The king's gaze moved to Elena again. "You are not a prisoner," he said. "I held you here because I feared losing what little thread I had to my daughter's past months. But that fear no longer rules me." He stopped walking. "Tell me honestly," he said. "What do you wish, Señora? Do you wish to stay near my court, under my protection? I could find you a position. Anna would be glad. Or do you wish to return to your bakery, to your life before all this?" Eleanor opened her mouth, then closed it. What did she wish? She thought of the oven, the early mornings, the steady rhythm of kneading. She thought of the noise of the court, the weight of other people's eyes, the constant undercurrent of danger and calculation. And she thought of Anna's hand in hers. "I wish," she said slowly, "for the child to be safe. That is first. If she is safer here, I cannot demand you let her wander my streets as before." Anna's fingers tightened. "But I also wish to be myself," Eleanor continued. "I do not know how to be someone who bows and smiles and measures her words all day. My tongue would trip, my bread would be terrible." The king smiled again, more fully this time. "I have tasted palace bread," he said. "You may be right." He grew serious. "Then we will not decide today," he said. "Return to your room. Rest. Think. When the dust of this day has settled, we will speak again. You will not be forced into any role you do not choose." "Thank you, sire," she said. He placed a hand briefly on Anna's shoulder. "Go with her," he said to his daughter. "You have both earned some quiet." They parted. Back in the smaller sitting room near their chambers, the silence felt almost thick. Elena sank into a chair. Anna curled up on the rug at her feet, leaning against her skirts. After a while, a soft knock sounded. "Come in," Elena said. Rodrigo stepped inside. He closed the door behind him and remained standing, as if unsure whether he was welcome. "You stood very straight today," he said, "in that hall." "If I had not, my legs would have given way," she replied. "It was stand straight or fall." He smiled briefly. "The king's words about you will travel faster than any gossip," he said. "You are no longer an easy target." "Do you believe that?" she asked. "No," he admitted. "But it will be harder for some to move against you openly. They will need more shadows." "Comforting," she said. He hesitated. "I did not come only to speak of shadows," he said. She waited. "When I first saw you in that room," he said, "you were a stranger. An inconvenience in a difficult matter. Someone I might have had to question, even accuse, if the facts pointed that way." "Yes," she said calmly. "I know. As we spoke," he went on, "I saw that you were something else, someone who, despite fear, refused the easy path, someone for whom truth is not a word to be polished, but a bread to be broken honestly." "That is a poetic way of saying I am stubborn," she said. "Stubbornness is a virtue when used correctly," he replied. "Today, watching you face that hall, I realized something inconvenient." "Inconvenient?" she echoed. He drew a breath, as if accustomed to breathing easier in battles than in moments like this. "I realize that my concern for you has ceased to be entirely professional," he said. "When they pushed you to sign those papers, I was angry. When I heard Doña Beatriz speak outside your door, I could not sleep. When you walked into that hall, I felt more fear for you than I have felt for myself in years." She looked at him, her heart beating a little faster. "Captain—" "Rodrigo," he interrupted softly. "I think we have earned that by now." "Rodrigo," she corrected. "You should be careful what you say. Feelings spoken aloud cannot be taken back easily." "I know," he said, "but after today I am more aware than ever that days do not always give us the time we assume. I have seen too many opportunities buried under phrases like later and not yet." He stepped closer, still not quite near enough to startle her, but close enough that his voice dropped. "I do not know what path the king will choose for you," he said. "I do not know what you will choose for yourself. I only know that if there is a path that allows me to walk beside you, I would count it a gift. Whether that means escorting you to your bakery doors at dawn, or standing at a palace threshold where you teach princesses the value of honest bread." Her breath caught. "You hardly know me," she said. His eyes held hers. "I know how you stand when every advantage is against you," he said. "I know that you feed children quietly without asking their names. I know that you will argue with kings when they try to twist what you have seen. Many people know my uniform. Very few know the man inside it. You have seen more of him in these days than others have in years?" He hesitated, as if choosing each word with care. "I am not asking for an answer now," he said. "The ground beneath your feet is still shifting. It would be unfair to demand a promise when you have not yet been given the space to dream. I only wished," he exhaled, "I only wished you to know that, whatever storm this court brews, there is at least one heart within it that thinks of you not as a witness or a problem to be solved, but as a woman whose courage has become very precious to him." Eleanor felt warmth rise in her face, a different heat than anger or embarrassment. She thought of her small, flower-dusted world, of this man whose life had been spent in service to crowns and orders, and of the strange way their paths had crossed over a piece of bread and a lost child. "You choose your moments badly," she said, half laughing, half shaken. "Today of all days. Today is the only day we have in our hands," he replied. "Tomorrow is a rumor." Anna, who had been very quiet, sat up and looked between them. "Are you saying you like Elena?" she asked, with the bluntness only a child can manage. Rodrigo's ears reddened, but he did not look away. "Yes," he said simply. "Very much." Anna turned to Elena. "Do you like him?" she asked. Elena opened her mouth, then closed it, then laughed despite herself. "I am learning to," she said. "That is a beginning," Rodrigo murmured. Anna smiled, delighted. "Then you must both stay," she announced. "Here, or there, or somewhere together. I do not care where, as long as there is bread." Elena shook her head. "You see," she said to Rodrigo, "she has the makings of a queen. She thinks people can be arranged as easily as loaves." "For once," he said softly. "I hope she is right." There was no urgency in his voice now, only a quiet hope, fragile but real. Eleanor looked at him, at Anna leaning against her skirts, at the small space of calm carved out of a day full of strain. For the first time since the king's carriage had stopped at her shop, she felt not only fear and pressure, but the outline of something else. Possibility. The world beyond her ovens and beyond these stone walls was still uncertain, with questions unanswered and choices not yet made. But in the midst of that, there was a child who now slept under watchful eyes, a king beginning to face uncomfortable truths, and a man who had chosen to stand beside her when it would have been safer to step away. For now that was enough to let her breathe a little more freely, and to imagine that the life ahead might hold not only duty and danger, but also a place where her hands could shape bread and her heart could rest without fear. Spring came to Segovia quietly, like someone easing open a familiar door. Weeks had passed since the day in the Great Hall. In the palace, questions had been asked behind closed doors, papers examined, servants called and dismissed. Names had been spoken in low voices. Some faces disappeared from the corridors and did not return. Elena heard enough to know that the inquiry had done its work. Cousins of the House of Mendoza had been implicated. A coachman had admitted he had been paid to drive at odd hours. A lady's maid, trembling, confessed she had been told it was all a harmless jest, a way to teach the princess humility. No one used words like kidnap loudly, but everyone thought them. Doña Beatriz remained at her estate, watched and contained. Letters arrived at court with her seal. Few were answered. The king did not speak of her often. When he did, it was with a sadness that had already begun to harden into something steadier. "She chose the game over my child," he said once to Elena. "Whatever excuse she makes to herself, that is the truth." In public, the court smoothed its face. There were ceremonies, proclamations, a measured announcement that the princess had been recovered thanks to the providence of God and the vigilance of His Majesty's servants. Eleanor's name was mentioned in a formal decree, granting her royal protection and a modest pension. She listened as the words were read, her hands folded. It felt strange to hear her life reduced to a few lines, written in a script more elegant than any she had ever attempted. Later, alone with Anna, she shrugged. "Do you like being in decrees?" Anna asked, eyes bright with curiosity. "I like being near an oven," Eleanor replied. "Paper does not rise as nicely as dough." "You could stay here," Anna pointed out. "You could have a kitchen as large as this entire room. You could bake for us." "I could," Elena agreed. "But then who would make sure the masons in the square have good bread? And who would keep your memories of the bakery from turning into mere stories?" Anna sighed dramatically. "You and your bread," she said. "You love it more than anything." "Not more than anything," Elena said softly. She did not say what else lived in that place in her heart now, alongside the warmth of her ovens and the thin girl who had once pressed her face to the window. Rodrigo had not spoken again of his confession in that small room. He did not press. He did not withdraw. He simply remained present. He escorted them sometimes through the palace gardens when Anna grew restless, walking at a slight distance, letting them talk without hovering. He sat quietly in corners during long meetings, his eyes finding Eleanor's when the air grew too thick with half-truths. He went to Segovia twice more to check on her shop, always returning with a dry report for the king and a brief private word for her. "Your neighbor Teresa has become something of a commander," he said with a flicker of amusement one afternoon. "She threatened to chase off anyone who looked at your shutters too long." "I hope you did not look too long," Eleanor replied. "I am more afraid of her broom than of any sword," he said. "I kept my gaze modest." Anna giggled. "And the bakery?" Elena asked. "Dusty," he said, "but sound. The oven misses you. I could tell." "How can an oven miss anyone?" Anna asked. "Ask Elena," he said. "She will explain how bread has a memory." Elena smothered a smile. "Does it?" Anna asked, turning back to her. "Yes," Elena said. "It remembers the hands that shaped it, just as people remember who feeds them when they are hungry." Anna's eyes softened. "Then I will never forget," she said. The choice that had seemed so impossible began, slowly, to soften around the edges. The king called Elena to speak with him one evening. They met in a smaller chamber than the great hall. No audience, no banners. Only a simple table, a map spread across it, and a decanter of wine. He did not sit behind the table. He stood beside it, tracing the lines of the river with a finger as she entered. "Señora Morales," he said. "Come in." She inclined her head. "You sent for me, sire." "I did," he said. "I am leaving Segovia soon. The court must move. There are matters in Madrid that will not wait." "I see," she said quietly. He looked up. "Anna has begged," he went on, "to return to your bakery before we go. She talks of nothing else lately." "That does not surprise me," Elena said. "She is loyal to her stomach." "And to you," he said. He picked up a folded piece of parchment and held it toward her. "This," he said, "is an appointment and a permission." She took it, unfolded it, and read slowly. The king watched her. "You may read it aloud," he said, "if you wish to be sure." Her lips moved over the formal words. "By the grace of God and the authority of the crown, it is decreed that Elena Morales, Baker of Segovia, is from this day under royal protection, and that her establishment shall be designated a favored house of provision to the royal household when in residence. She is free to remain in Segovia, to operate her trade, and to receive the princess and members of the royal household at their pleasure, without interference from local authorities. No tax shall be raised upon her unjustly, and any slander against her name regarding the recent events shall be considered an offense against the crown." She lowered the parchment slowly. "You put much ink to my small life," she said. "Your hands held my daughter when mine could not," he replied. "It seems fair." "This means I am free to go," she said. "Yes," he answered. Free to return to your ovens. Free to close your door if the court's noise becomes too much. Free to remain if you choose when we ask you to visit. And Anna, she asked. She will visit as often as we can make it possible, he said. With proper escort, of course, but I will not separate you completely. That bond, I have seen, does more for her than any number of tutors. Thank you, Elena said. He hesitated. There is more, he said. I cannot tell you how to live, but I would advise you not to walk alone, at least for a while, not because I fear open attack. Those who plotted have been constrained, but there are those who resent simple people who become symbols. It is unwise to have no one at your side when you are spoken of. Her brows rose. Do you suggest I hire a guard? She asked, half amused, half wary. A guard is cold company, he said. I was thinking of someone with a warmer presence, someone who already walks beside you as if he has done so for years. Her heart skipped. You speak of Rodrigo, she said. I speak of Captain de la Vega, the king replied, though his eyes softened. He has served me well, and lately he has served you as much as me, whether he intended to or not. I did not ask him to, she said. No, the king said. That is what makes it valuable. I will not command his heart, nor yours. But if you choose one another, know that you will have my blessing, not my displeasure. She stared at him, startled. You would permit, she said slowly, your captain to tie himself to a baker with flour on her hands and a tongue that argues with you. He gave a short laugh. Perhaps, he said. That is exactly the sort of voice he needs near him. Court life dulls some men. You, I suspect, would keep his edges sharp. He sobered. I only ask one thing, he added, that you do not agree to anything out of gratitude, only out of love. I have seen too many unions forged out of duty or fear. They bind, but they do not warm. She looked down at the parchment in her hands. I will think, she said quietly. That is all I ask, he replied. The next day the king kept his promise. They went to the bakery, not in a grand procession this time, but in a small contained group. The king, Anna, Rodrigo, and a few discreet attendants. No banners, no trumpets, only the sound of horses and the honest creak of a simple carriage. Segovia watched, of course. People peered from windows, from alleys, from doorways. Word ran ahead, the king to the baker's lane. Teresa was waiting at the door, apron hastily smoothed, hair half tucked under a shawl. Eleanor, she cried as her friend stepped down from the carriage. You are thinner. They do not feed you there? They feed us too much, Elena said. I missed real hunger. It sharpens the senses. Teresa snorted. You and your sayings, she said. Then she noticed the small figure emerging behind Eleanor and swallowed. Is that? Yes, Eleanor said softly. This is Anna. Teresa's eyes shone. Welcome back, little one, she said. We missed your shadow at the window. Anna smiled so wide it seemed to fill her face. I missed your chickens, she said. Teresa laughed, offended and pleased in equal measure. You hear that? She called back into her house. The princess thinks more kindly of my hens than of your king's golden halls. Let her think what she will, the king said mildly as he approached, as long as she eats well in both places. Teresa turned, paled slightly, and dropped into an awkward curtsy. Your Majesty, she stammered, forgive me. I did not see— There is nothing to forgive, he said. You have guarded this place well in Elena's absence. I am grateful. He entered the bakery. Time had left a thin film of dust over the shelves, but the counters were clean, the oven swept. Rodrigo had overseen the care well. Elena moved with a kind of reverence. Her hands touched the wooden tables, the familiar cracks. She opened jars, breathed in the faint scent of flour and yeast. This is where it began, the king said quietly, looking around. Yes, Elena replied, with hunger and a window. Anna darted to the stool she had sat on so many mornings. It is smaller, she said in surprise. You have grown, Elena pointed out. Have I? Anna asked, pleased. The king smiled at her, then stepped aside as Elena moved to the oven. I will light it, she said. You do not have to, the king said. We did not come to make you work. I do, she replied, already reaching for kindling. This place has been asleep. It is time to wake it. Rodrigo watched her. He helped without being asked, stacking small logs, checking that the chimney was clear. You know what you are doing, she remarked. I have watched enough bakers in camp, he said. Men fight better with good bread in them. I learned quickly whom to assist. Fire caught. The familiar warmth began to rise. Elena mixed dough as she always had, water, flour, salt, yeast. Her hands moved with an ease that made her sigh, as if part of her had been stiff all this time and now relaxed. Anna watched, entranced. Can I help? She asked. Wash your hands, Elena said. Then you may shape the smallest loaves. We will call them princess loaves. Anna hurried to obey. The king sat on a simple bench, watching his daughter press small hands into the dough, laughter on her lips. If anyone had told me, he said softly to Rodrigo, that I would find more peace in a baker's shop than in my own halls. I would have believed it, Rodrigo replied under his breath. Would you? The king asked, amused. I have seen what passes for peace in halls, Rodrigo said. This seems healthier. The first loaves went into the oven. The smell rose, filling the small room. It wrapped around them, a warm, solid scent, more comforting than incense in any chapel. Eleanor moved between oven and table, cheeks flushed, hair escaping from her braid. She looked more herself than she had in the richest chambers of the palace. Rodrigo felt something in his chest loosen. This is who you are, he murmured when she passed near him. This is part of who I am, she corrected. He nodded. Part, he repeated. They ate bread together when it came out of the oven, too hot, crisp crust cracking under their fingers, steam curling up. The king laughed when the heat burned his tongue. I had forgotten this, he said, the impatience that refuses to wait for bread to cool. You see, Elena said, you are not so different from your subjects. Anna watched them both, delight in her eyes. Can we come every week? She asked. The king smiled ruefully. We cannot, he said, but we will come as often as we can. And you, if Elena agrees, may at times come without me when it is safe. Rodrigo will arrange it. Anna clapped once. Elena, she asked, will you be here always? Elena looked around her shop. The counters, the oven, the door, the window where a small, hungry face had once appeared. Yes, she said. If God allows, I will be here. But I may not always be alone. Anna tilted her head. What do you mean? She asked. Elena's heart beat faster. She wiped flour from her hands and looked at the king. Your Majesty, she said quietly. May I speak with your captain? The king's brows rose. You do not need my permission to speak to him, he said. But you have it. He stepped outside with Anna and Teresa, leaving them to their chickens and curiosity. The attendants lingered at a respectful distance. The bakery was suddenly quiet. Rodrigo stood by the counter, watching her. Elena, he said softly. She moved closer, her steps slow. I have thought, she said. That is what you asked me to do, to think before I answered you. I remember, he said. I have done little else myself. She smiled faintly. I asked myself many questions, she went on, whether I am fit for a life tied to someone whose service will always belong partly to a king, whether you are fit for a life tied to someone whose hands will always smell of yeast and ash, whether Anna would suffer, whether people would whisper. And what answers did you find? He asked quietly. That there will always be whispers, she said. That you will always answer a summons when the king calls. That I will always rise before dawn because bread does not wait. And that none of these truths frighten me as much as the thought of returning to those dawns and those summonses without knowing there is one place in this world where we meet as ourselves, and not as titles. His breath caught. Elena, he murmured. She reached out, her fingers hesitating for a moment before touching his sleeve. I do not offer a palace, she said. I offer a narrow bed that creaks, a table that wobbles, an oven that needs wood chopped on cold mornings. I offer days when flour is scarce and customers complain. I offer a heart that has taken its time to learn it can love more than bread and one small girl. He stepped nearer, enough that she could feel his warmth. And I, he said, voice low, offer a life that will sometimes drag me away at inconvenient hours. I offer scars you cannot see and a conscience that will not always let me sleep. I offer a loyalty that has been the only anchor of my days, and I offer all of that to you if you will have it. She looked up at him. I will, she said simply. His eyes closed briefly, as if something inside him finally unknotted. Then I must ask properly, he said. He went down on one knee on the flour-dusted floor. She stared. "Rodrigo, you will ruin your trousers," she protested, half laughing, half crying. "They have seen worse," he said. "Elena Morales, baker of Segovia, woman who feeds princesses and argues with kings. Will you marry me?" Her laugh broke into a sob. "Yes," she said, the word bursting out of her. "Yes, I will marry you." He reached for her hand, and she gave it. "Then, by your word," he said, "I am the happiest man in Spain." She pulled him up. He rose, and for a moment they simply stood there, close enough to feel each other's breath. He did not touch her face, not yet. He only lifted her flower-marked hand to his lips and kissed it with a reverence that made her heart ache. "Do you realize," she said, trying to steady herself with a touch of humor, "that you are binding yourself to a woman whose best conversations happen at dawn with dough?" "I look forward to them," he replied. The door flew open. "Elena," Anna cried, bursting in. "Teresa says—" She stopped, eyes widening as she took in the scene, Rodrigo's hand in Elena's, his smile, her flushed face. "Did you ask?" Anna demanded of him. "Yes," he said. "Did you say yes?" she demanded of Elena. "I did," Elena said. Anna shrieked with joy and flung herself at them both, wrapping her arms around their joined hands. "Now I will never have to choose," she exclaimed. "I will have you both, and bread, and a king. It is perfect." Elena laughed through her tears. "Trust a child to list us after bread and kings," she said. Rodrigo looked at Anna with affection. "Will you stand with us when we speak to the king?" he asked. He should hear this from more than one voice. "I will shout it," Anna promised, "so even the chickens know." The wedding did not happen at once. There were arrangements to make, duties to fulfill, seasons to balance. But when it came, it was as simple and as full as Elena could have wished. They chose to marry in Segovia. The king offered the palace chapel. Elena politely refused. "It is too far from the oven," she said. Instead, they stood before the small altar of the town church. The stone floor had been swept, the few flowers available arranged with care. Neighbors filled the benches. Soldiers in neat coats stood alongside masons in their best shirts. Teresa cried openly. The king came, of course. He insisted on it. He stood not at the front but among the people, his presence no heavier than any other guest's. Anna walked between Elena and Rodrigo, holding their hands until the last possible moment. "You will not change your mind?" she asked them in a fierce whisper. "It is already too late," Rodrigo said softly. "My mind is yours now." Elena squeezed her little hand. "We are not leaving you behind," she said. "Wherever we go, you will always find bread and a chair with your name on it." The priest's words were simple. 2 lives, 1 promise, 2 paths, 1 road. Rodrigo spoke his vows without stumbling. His voice was steady, his eyes clear. "I will guard you," he said to Elena. "Not as a soldier guards a fortress, but as a man guards the one place where he can lay down his sword and still feel strong." Elena answered, her voice low but unwavering. "I will walk beside you," she said, "not behind your rank or before your duty, but at your side. When flour is scarce and orders are heavy, when days are quiet and when they are not, you will always have bread in my house and truth in my mouth." Laughter rippled gently through the church at those last words. Anna sniffled loudly and wiped her nose on her sleeve, unbothered by decorum. When the priest declared them husband and wife, Rodrigo did not hesitate. He leaned down and kissed Elena, a brief, reverent kiss, the kind that held 1,000 promises without saying a word. The church erupted in applause. Outside bells rang. Children ran in circles, throwing petals scavenged from every garden. Someone produced a fiddle. Someone else began a song. The king approached them as they stepped out. "Señora de la Vega," he said with a small bow. "It suits you." "Elena is enough," she replied. "At least in my bakery." "Then I will call you Elena when I come for bread," he said. "And Señora, when I need your advice." She arched a brow. "You have ministers for that," she said. "I have ministers for speeches," he answered. "I have you for honesty." He turned to Rodrigo. "You understand," he said to his captain, "that this union changes nothing in your duty to the crown. It may, however, change how often you wish to leave my side." "It may," Rodrigo admitted, "but you have always trusted me to know when to ride out and when to stay. That will not change." "It had better not," the king said. but his eyes were warm. Anna flung her arms around them both again. "Now we must eat," she declared. "That is what happens after weddings." "You have learned the important parts," Rodrigo told her. The feast was held in the street outside the bakery. Tables were set up with borrowed planks. Bread, of course, took pride of place, along with stews, olives, wine. Music played. Laughter rose, joined by the clink of cups. Elena watched it all with a feeling she had no name for at first. Not pride, exactly. Not relief alone. Something like fullness. Rodrigo slipped an arm lightly around her waist, fingers resting with familiarity, but also with a tenderness that made her lean into him without thinking. "Are you happy?" he asked in a quiet moment, when the noise around them blurred into a hum. "Yes," she said. "Terrified, but happy." "Terrified," he repeated. "I have been entrusted with a husband who is too brave for his own good, and a princess who trusts my bread more than her tutors," she said. "It is a great responsibility. I will try to be obedient," he murmured. "You will fail," she said, "but I will still love you." He laughed softly and kissed her hair. Days settled into a new rhythm. Rodrigo divided his time between Segovia and the court. Sometimes he left before dawn, horse-saddled, duty calling him. Sometimes he returned late, tired, dust on his boots, eyes seeking her before anything else. Elena rose as she always had. She kneaded, baked, sold. The sign over her door remained plain. Elena Morales Panaderia, but people began to call it other things. The bakery of the princess's friend. The king's baker. The house where Captain de la Vega smiles. She ignored the titles and cared for the people who came in with coins and empty hands alike. Anna grew. She came as often as she could, never without an escort, but always with the same unguarded joy when she crossed the threshold. Here in this small shop, she could for a time forget lessons and courtly rules. She sat at her old stool, now a little small, and listened to Elena and Rodrigo argue gently over how much salt to put in the dough, or whether the king would approve of a new recipe. "Will you always have room for me?" Anna asked once when the bakery was crowded. "Always," Elena said. "If we run out of chairs, you may sit on the counter. And if we run out of bread," Anna teased. "That will never happen while I have hands," Elena replied. And in the quiet moments when the last customer had gone and the day's coins lay in their little box, Elena and Rodrigo sat at their wobbly table and spoke of things that did not fit in the spaces between orders and duties. He told her of battles he had seen without glory, only with the weight of choices. She listened, not as an audience for stories, but as someone who held his memories gently, without judgment. She told him of the brother she had lost, of the days when she had thought her life would be nothing more than survival. He listened, seeing in her not a victim of circumstance, but a woman who had turned grief into bread for others. They argued sometimes. Marriage did not erase their sharp tongues. She scolded him when he took risks with his health, riding out before fully healed from minor injuries. He scolded her when she worked herself to exhaustion before asking for help. But their disagreements always ended in the same place, in the small space between them at the table, where an apology could be offered with a touch, and forgiveness could be baked quietly into the next day's loaf. On a summer evening, sometime after all the storms had settled, Elena stood at the door of her bakery, watching the sun lay long shadows across the square. Rodrigo approached, dust on his boots, cloak over his arm. Anna ran ahead of him, no longer the frail girl of that first morning, but still with the same quick smile. "Elena," Anna called, "guess what? They wrote about you again, in Madrid. They say you are a symbol." "A symbol of what?" Elena asked. "Of hope," Anna said promptly. "Of courage. I forget the rest, but it was very flattering." Elena rolled her eyes. "Tell them I am a symbol of good bread and stubbornness," she said. "That is already known," Rodrigo said, reaching her side. She looked up at him. "Are you home?" she asked. "For now," he said, "for as long as the king can spare me. He sends his greetings, and his request for 2 loaves like the ones we had on the day of your wedding. He grows demanding," she said, "but I suppose we can oblige a man who helped arrange my happiness." Rodrigo smiled. "He says he will come soon," he added, "to sit here and remember that sometimes a king's heart is best kept in a small shop that smells of flour." She reached for his hand. "Then we will be ready," she said. Anna tugged at her sleeve. "Tell me again," she said, How it started, the first day, when I was just a girl at the window. Elena looked between them, at the man whose eyes held hers with the warmth of shared days, at the princess whose laughter had filled her empty rooms, at the square that had watched her rise before dawn in solitude and now watched her life overflow. It started, she said, because one person was hungry and another person could not bear to look away, that is all. That is always how it starts. And how does it end? Anna asked. Elena smiled, leaning her head briefly against Rodrigo's shoulder as he wrapped an arm around her. It does not end, she said quietly. It only grows, like dough that refuses to stay small. It becomes home. It becomes family. It becomes love that knows exactly how much it has lost and chooses still to give. The lamps in the square were lit one by one. The smell of bread drifted into the warm air. Laughter rose from inside the shop, mingling with the low murmur of evening voices. And in that simple doorway, between light and shadow, between the world of kings and the world of common folk, Eleanor stood with the man she had chosen and the child she had saved. Her heart full, her hands no longer empty, knowing that whatever storms might come, she had finally found a life where love, truth, and daily bread could live side by side. Thank you so much for listening to this story all the way to the end. We hope it moved you as much as it moved us while telling it. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave us a comment telling us where you're listening from and what you liked the most. Rate this story from 0 to 10. What score would you give it? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like as a show of support. That really motivates us to keep creating and sharing more stories full of emotion and life lessons. And before we go, we want to remind you that an exciting and heartwarming story recommendation will appear on the final screen. If you'd like to enjoy it, just click on the video. Thank you once again for being here, and we'll see you in the next story.